Chapter 5 of the Bhagavad Geeta is essentially a bridge between Karma Yoga and the Yoga of meditation, from ego-realized souls to soul-realized egos, through renunciation or Karma Sannyas Yoga. It is the chapter where Bhagavan speaks of the yoga of renunciation of action. It has 29 verses. 4 topics summarize this chapter. Yogi, Sanyasi and Gyani. God tells us about them from verses 1 to 7. How they relate to action, verses 8 to 12. State of Supreme Being, verses 13 to 19. Renunciation precedes meditation and realization, verses 20 to 29. In the opening verse of the chapter, Arjuna asks Krishna to advise him conclusively as to which is the better of the two, the path of action or the path of renunciation, sannyasam or karmanam. Krishna clarifies this doubt by saying that renunciation of action and yoga of action both lead to the highest bliss. But of the two, yoga, meaning participation of action, is superior to the renunciation of action. According to the Lord, he is a sannyasi who neither likes nor dislikes. He is Nitya Sanyasi. He is a perpetual ascetic, in one who has transcended the inner instruments of the body, mind and intellect. He is no longer agitated or unsettled at the physical level, from heat or cold, from health and sickness, from joy and sorrow, love and hatred at the emotional level, honor and dishonor, knowledge or ignorance at the intellectual level. Here Krishna uses the term prithak bala. He refers to those who do not see the interrelation between yoga and sannyasa as bala, or spiritual children. Yoga and sannyasa indicate the same path because it is only through yoga or action that a person matures into sannyas, renunciation, and ends with knowledge. He is initially called a yogi. Then as he advances, he becomes more spiritually evolved and he is known as a sannyasi. And when he attains spiritual enlightenment, he is a Gyani. Sankhya is knowledge and wisdom associated with the concept of sannyas. So how can a man obtain the results of both? By the right observance of only one. When we do karma yoga, through service or through yajna, a lot of our baggage or vasanas are offloaded and the antar becomes pure. Our tamas and our rajas get depleted in God and my duty. Sattva then reigns supreme and we use sattva to meditate. The mind can be purified by the process of treating it with right action. Yoga yukta, Bhagavan says, selfless action. By selfless and unattached activity, the mind becomes poised, single-pointed. And nachirena, God says, and it's not long before the determined seeker will realize the self. The day you plant the seed is not the day you eat the fruit. When through karma yoga, a man has gained inward peace, he transcends the limitations of his gross, subtle and causal bodies. He sees unity in the diversity, the same self in all the creatures. He realizes that Jeev is Ishwar Roop, Paramatma is Angshi, Jeev is Angsh, Ishwar Sagar hai, or Jeev hai Jal Bindu. He becomes like a flying bird. He leaves behind no trace, hence he is not tainted, even though he is engaged in actions. The Gyani, having become one with the Supreme Self, looks at the entire range of life's activities, but he remains a silent witness. He remains a Sakshi. He becomes his own best friend. The knower of truth is like space. He is like the sky. Why? Because space is pure, it is free, and it is ever present. Space does not change with good or bad weather or storms. So too with the Gyani, he remains perfectly detached from all internal functionings and external activities. Take the example of Narada. Time and again he fell for the infatuation of the senses, yet he diligently pursued his devotional music and made all his listeners feel its divine ecstasy and joy, his thoughts constantly flowing in love towards the supreme in devotion. A Gyani is the known of full awareness which is present in all of us. Like darkness must roll away at dawn, so too, once the worldward flow of the mind has completely ended, the devotee has no charm for the objects of the world. He becomes like the gopis of Braj, whose minds never remained with them for even a moment, but with their beloved Krishna, and hence they had no desire for worldly things. Little by little, an army of leaf-cutter ants collects greens that are piled together, and slowly that becomes their source of both food and shelter. So too with the yajna spirit, the smallest steps taken every day create enormous impact in the future. In Japanese philosophy, Kaizen, the word Kaizen stands for gradual and continuous. Keval, Bhagavan says Keval, merely by gradually and continually increasing our inner wealth. What is our inner wealth? Sama, mastery over the mind. Dhamma, control of the external senses. Uparama, observance of one's own dharma or duty of life principle. Titiksha, endurance of heat and cold at the physical level. Joy and sorrow at the emotional level. Man and apman at the intellectual level. Shraddha in our Guru. Samadha, single-pointedness of the mind. Mumukshatvam, intense desire to be one with the real self. The yogi, by the kayena is the body, manasa, the mind, and buddhaya, the intellect, does service for the purification of the ego or the self. This yukta, this united one, serves the world without ego and egocentric desires and lusts, whereas the ayukta, the non-united man, is still in wanting for desires to possess and enjoy. State of Supreme Being is a mental attitude. It is not an external symbol. It is not merely physical escapism, but a mental withdrawal from thoughtlessness. The Gyani, even while staying in the physical body of the 9 gates, the 9 gates being the 2 eyes, the 2 nostrils, 2 ears, 1 mouth, the genital and excretory organs, performs his nitya karma and his naimitic karma. That is, he does his obligatory duties towards his family, his relation, the community, the nation, and the world in a spirit of unattachment, joy, and dedication. He cannot be contained because he himself becomes the container. Life doesn't happen to him, life happens for him, and nothing stands in the way of the light that shines from him. Karmani, action by themselves are neutral, they are neither good nor bad. It is the motive of the doer that determines the quality of action. If done selfishly, they create vasanas, but if they are done with the yajna spirit, they lead to the exhaustion of vasanas. In the universal law of nature, the twinkling stars, the flowing rivers, the shining sun, the falling rain, plants flower, trees bear fruits, oceans heave, towering mountains stand. They all serve the world to make what it is, and none of them demand even a passing recognition from the people benefited by it. They do their duties, discovering a joyous fulfillment in their very performance. Prabhu, the Lord, is also Sakshi, and Vibhu is the all-pervading reality. They are one and the same. Consciousness exists within everything, and everything exists within consciousness. Everybody is a part of it. It needs no proof, like a mother's love for its child. It's immaculate. Once the ignorance is destroyed by knowledge, the knowledge reveals the supreme like the sun, like the green mantle of moss covering the surface of a lake. What is the green moss? The green moss is nothing else, but it is actually our own vices, like hatred, cravings, arrogance, jealousy. Once we remove the moss, you will see crystal clear water. On the surface, you may still have a few ripples, but as we go deeper, the lake is still, and calm. No matter what kind of person you are, whichever category you may belong to, any gender, any race, whatever be the background or past history, the wise view them all with humility, happiness, love, and compassion. Compassion and all these, which is the pure, wonderful nature of every Atman. Peace that we are all looking for somewhere lies beyond the personality, beyond the perception of others, beyond effort. We do not need magic to change our world. We carry all the power we need inside ourselves already. We have the power to imagine better. Many of us are oblivious of our own closed-mindedness. Please hear this carefully. Many of us are oblivious to our own closed-mindedness. We picture ourselves at the center of our own individual universe instead of seeing the bigger, more interconnected picture. Keep going. Your future self is begging you. The soul is not contained within the limits of the body. The body is contained within the limitlessness of the soul. Our eyes are not just viewers, they are also projectors. They run a second story that we see in front of us all the time. No matter what you gain, the ego will not let us rest. How tricky is this ego that it would tempt us with something that we already possess? To maintain the recognition of this knowledge, which is pure, your mind becomes calm, peaceful, and you discover within yourself. It becomes a wow moment. It becomes an aha moment. In Vedanta, the all-pervading supreme reality has in itself gone into modification. Like how just before we started this, Sir had told us about the cotton. Cotton is ever cotton, only it has changed its form, and we gave it the name thread at one stage and the name cloth at another stage. According to our own angle of vision, the same piece of cloth changes its impressions and reactions upon us superficially. We see it as a bed sheet. On a closer look, we see thread, and on an even closer look, we see it as cotton. But having once seen the cotton, there is in fact no difference between the many and various patterns and even the different kinds of cloth. With knowledge or awareness, our vision becomes one homogeneous whole. Be it the cow, be it the dog, be it the elephant. These subtle references to humans and animals indicate the range of living beings that see the one self through the material layer of body, mind, and intellect, and they recognize the divinity within the all-encompassing Prabhu. Renunciation precedes meditation and realization, verses 20 to 29. In listening, while doing Shravana, we only participate in spiritual information. When we study Swadhyaya, we get involved in the ideas we have listened to. In Japa, our involvement deepens. And in meditation, we get ourselves totally committed to the ideal, which is the goal of all spiritual seekers. The thought, the chitta, becomes quiet and alert, and the bud is ready to flower. Disciplining the mind is known as yoga. Mind is the commander, mind is the king. The mind is exactly as the thoughts in it. As the thoughts, so the mind. You can take the example of the muddy water or the clean water. Through introspection, that means observing the motives, intentions, and purposes of actions done day long. Through detection, discovery of our own weaknesses, faults, and anomalies each day. Through negation, when wrong traits, after we acknowledge them, die, it is negation. Through substitution, when a weakness is defeated, we substitute it with its opposite virtue in our personalities. Through karma, action, bhakti, devotion, and Gyani, knowledge, the mind gains equanimity and can only then practice single-pointed meditation. The process may be slow, but it is sure. In Kindle Life, Chapter 30, The Secret of Action, a talk delivered by Swamiji on the inevitability of action, he asks us, what exactly is life? Activity is the insignia of life. Action is inevitable because it is the signature of life. Life expresses itself in action as death does in inaction. But actions may vary as they do vary from man to man. Those alone who constantly practice the control of the mind and quieten the physical agitations caused by desires and attachments, they grow in their spiritual strength. The sense objects and their joys become finite in nature. Being finite in nature, they do not enchant a wise man. We don't have to deny the world, but only to the extent of not indulging, but sublimating. Swamiji says, what I get is his gift to me. What I do with what I get is my gift to him. In this, we will inevitably face some challenging circumstances, but these can help us progress in our life. While we have the power of choice on how to respond to them, when we use our power to cultivate a positive attitude and make a resolve never to blame the situation or the external circumstances for our problems, we find happiness and define our future destiny in life. We are all yogis. We can use our power of choice to a positive attitude to grow spiritually. Love is a verb. When we open our hearts, God's grace is bestowed upon us. The person who is happy within, who rejoices within, who is illuminated within, and is no more on his emotional roller coaster of going up and down, will progress solidly and systematically in the spiritual journey to attain absolute freedom or moksha. Once you obtain absolute freedom or moksha by the mastery of the body, mind, and intellect, you become your own best friend. Lord Krishna says that those who have uplifted themselves by the power of the mind are integrated and satisfied in their knowledge and in their realization. He attains. He is changeless. And he has an equal vision for everybody, for all well-wishers, friends, for kith, for kin, for friends, for foes, for neutrals, for arbiters, for the saint, maybe a sinner. He is a yogi who lives consumed in an ever-reviving fire of love. He offers his complete self as oblations into the sacred fires of activity, while remaining at rest within himself in an unbroken consciousness of the divine, the eternal. He is not reactive, but he becomes proactive. Living your moment as if every moment really mattered. It's not about one person, it's about all of us, the present moment. That is the only moment we have. There is tremendous attraction or aversion to the past. The mind is totally up to the memory, be it the past or the future. We die 1,000 deaths by things about which we keep on thinking, which we absolutely cannot predict. We play the blame game about the good old days, about the bad old days. We keep blaming. But a shift in perception, in our awareness, in our consciousness, is the only moment that we have. Whatever we experience is judged by the mind. The mind is the boss. The mind is all over the place, and it has a life of its own. It is in the default mode. It thinks this, it thinks that, it likes, it dislikes. Emotions are like the river. If you try to stop them, it doesn't work. They will still flow. If you jump into the river, you will be carried away by it, which will also be a problem, as you won't be able to see the river. So stopping and jumping into the river are both not good options. So the best way is to observe the river. The art of living is to drop in on ourselves. We all have smartphones. We keep looking to the smartphones for information. We keep calling up people, how are you? Are you doing well? You haven't called me for a long time. How about we make a smartphone call to ourselves and ask, where are we? Are we in the present or in the past or in the future? Before concluding, I would like to ask each one of us, did mankind before 1969 ever think that he would be able to land on the moon? But it happened. Anything is possible. That's something we should not lose sight of. The inspiration and permission to dream is huge. Thank you, sir.